Hey guys, we are here for our next session. It'll be on compliant and accounting-ready bookkeeping system for decentralized finance. We have Antoine from Cryptio, and I'll let him take it from here.
Hi everyone, super happy to be here. This is Antoine calling from France today. Hope you're all well and safe. Today I'm here to talk about something that is highly important, but sometimes seen as something kind of boring. But for startups involved in the accounting and in the decentralized finance and crypto space, it's a topic that is more and more important, and it's called to be aware of the main challenges. So today the talk will be about building compliance and tax accounting ready bookkeeping system for startups involved in the decentralized finance space. It works also, of course, with crypto startups in general, but we'll focus on the challenges raised by decentralized finance. Feel free to ask all your questions in the chat or in the ask a question section at the bottom, and I'll be back. I answer at the end of the talk. We'll just move the slide so that you can see them better up. So let's get to it. One word before jumping into the topic about why I'm here today to talk about this topic. So I co-founded a startup called Cryptio, and what we're building is a bookkeeping software as a service solution for digital assets. So our mission is to help our clients hold transparent accounts and basically translate their accounting data into their crypto data, into accounting ready data. So that's the thing we work on. Just one word before about regulation. If you are a founder or if you're running a business that has something to do with crypto and decentralized finance, you need to be aware that regulators begin to understand crypto quite well. So it's pretty new. It's been started basically 3 years ago, and since 2017, you have more and more legal framework, tax framework, accounting frameworks, and basically in most countries today, you have specific guidance around crypto. For instance, in France, we have specific accounting guidance. We have specific tax guidance. We even have things around ICO. So this is something to have in mind. Regulators now have regulators know this and are looking and are watching crypto startups. But also, even though the path of regulation is fast, of course, the path of innovation is even faster, and is way faster, and especially when it comes to decentralized finance. So you have, for instance, when it comes to taxation, the main things and the main things around all the tax systems in the world are basically around crypto trading. So the taxation tells you how you should report your gains or loss that you're doing on trading on centralized exchange, and it's a pretty simple use case. When it comes to decentralized finance, it's more difficult. To give you a first example, is decentralized finance in kind of investment perspective is seen as a kind of a new tax haven, because if you're looking at all the existing tax system, you already have some loopholes in this very new tax systems specific to crypto. So this is a very, very simple example. If you're using, for instance, if you're buying ETH on an exchange like Coinbase, for instance, and then you use this ETH to borrow DAI on a lending protocol like Compound, and then you're spending this DAI with the credit card, you're just spending this DAI. It's possible that you don't have any taxable event in those transactions. Whereas that if you just buying the ETH on a centralized exchange and then selling them against fiat and using this fiat to buy something, you will have a taxable event and you will pay a capital gain tax on this. So first idea is, okay, interesting, because decentralized finance could be used, you could benefit from the kind of loopholes that are under regulation right now. But of course, it's a bit more complex than that. But the thing here that you can see is that DeFi raises new tax and new legal issues. For instance, in the previous example, if you look at the transaction where I deposit ETH on as a collateral on Compound and get a loan of DAI, here you have a lot of questions that are asked around ownership transfer. Is the ETH against CETH, is it a real trade? So the idea here is that decentralized finance is kind of a new challenge for regulators. They have spent basically like 18 months or 2 years regulating something, and now most of the things they have regulated is kind of challenged again by decentralized finance. So this is pretty exciting in a way. But if you running a business, and that's what we focus on, if you're running a business and you interact with decentralized finance protocol, whatever these protocols are, you need to ask yourself a lot of questions. Here, I'm not here to give you answers, because we are software developer, we are entrepreneur, we are not accountant, we are not tax advisors. We have a network of financial directors, we have a network of accounting firms that can potentially answer these questions. But you need, as a founder, ask yourself. So here is a list of quite simple, this is pretty basic transaction that you could do through decentralized finance protocol, and here are a few challenges around these transactions. And just one thing here, we will not talk about derivatives and synthetic assets, because this is the level of complexity in terms of accounting and taxes that synthetic asset create is really high, and you will need like another talk. But if we dig a little bit into these transactions, you have, and let's have a look at the different challenges. So you are a company, you're receiving a payment from one of your client, is paying you, let's say, 100 ETH. So here it's pretty simple. You just need to identify the specific transaction. You need to find a way as a company to see and to know that this transaction is a product revenue, and that could be potential income tax on it. And you have invoice management around it. This is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You just need a way to handle this. Then it starts to be a little bit more tricky. If you use the ETH and then you decide to borrow DAI on Compound, for instance, here you have the first question that you need to ask yourself, to ask your financial director or to ask your accounting firm is, okay, here what I'm doing is basically it's kind of a trade or an exchange between my ETH and CETH on Compound. So is that a trade? If it's a trade, is there some capital gains involved in it? This is like one question. I don't have any answer. It depends on the country, depends on the company. But this is one type of question that you need to ask yourself. Again, after that, if you're using DAI to pay employees, let's say through something like Sablio, for instance, how do you account for all these transactions that are made? Is there any capital gain that are done here? Meaning that even if DAI is a stable coin, the price of DAI is fluctuating a little bit. So is there a capital gain? Again, this is the type of question you need to ask yourself and that you need to ask your financial director. And let's take another example. If, let's say, you send those DAI on DSR smart contract and you start receiving interest from this smart contract. Again, there is other questions that you need to ask. Okay, is it the interest that I'm getting? Is it an income? Should I have to account it as an income tax? Potentially, the capital gain on the DAI that I'm putting on the DSR smart contract. That kind of questions. And maybe a last one. So when you pay back the loan, when you pay back the loan and you got your ETH back and you're paying an interest on when you pay back the loan, is it deductible? So as you can see here, is that DeFi like kind of introduced a new level of complexity in terms of accounting, in terms of taxation. Also, I think that the next talk will be very focused on taxation, so it would be more precise on this. But there are a lot of new challenges that are raised, and before doing anything, you need to ask those questions with your financial directors, with accounting firms, to identify all these tricky use cases that you need to care about. Once you have asked yourself those questions and you say, okay, this is kind of tricky, we need to have an interpretation for this, this is another answer to this specific use case, you can start building your bookkeeping system. So basically a bookkeeping system, it's pretty straightforward. Like a bookkeeping system is a system where you keep the books of all your transaction, and where you are able to add all these informations to the transaction so that you know what these transactions are and how they should be accounted. So, but again, having a bookkeeping system for decentralized finance is way more complex than having a bookkeeping system for regular trading, for instance, because when you're doing, for instance, when you're trading on a centralized exchange, it's simple. The transaction, all the transactions look the same. You have bought assets, sold assets, and all the transactions need to be accounted in the same way. For DeFi related transaction, or more globally, like on-chain transaction, you have more complexity. The complexity basically are first the counterparties. How can am I able to identify the different counterparties with who I'm doing transaction with? So on-chain, there's public addresses, doing transactions with public addresses. I need to be able to identify this counterparties to then be able to identify potential use cases and accounting use cases. Because if we go back to the previous example, you need to be aware in your bookkeeping system, you need to be aware that each transaction is a product revenue, that this one potentially is the transaction when you borrow the ETH. This one is a payable expense. So you need to identify all these accounting use cases. And these could be done if you are able to identify the counterparty. So for instance, here, or sorry for that, you need to say, okay, this specific address is the address of, for instance, employee A. You don't need, of course, to name the people, just to add information, so that then you can say, okay, so this transaction is a payroll expense. So yeah, so first, like, having a bookkeeping system for decentralized finance is a bit more challenging, because you will need to do these things: identifying counterparties, identifying tax treatment, identifying specific use cases. So yeah, that's how you do it. Basically, you need to have a list of all the addresses where you're doing the most transaction with. These addresses could be, again, entity, people, could be smart contract, it could be they could be real company. Then when you have identified the specific people, the specific entity, you can classify transaction, and you can say, okay, this is a payroll expense, this is an interest I'm getting on this protocol, this is a staking reward, and after that, the last thing that you need to do, which is basically like the most tricky thing, is this: send the data to an accounting system. Because it's a very cool thing to have on one side all the transaction with identify with all the different use cases, the counterparties. But if you can't import it into an accounting system, a real accounting system, a thing like QuickBooks, Xero, NetSuite, or SAP accounting system, and that kind of things, it is kind of useless, because in this system, this is where you will do basically the reconciliation between what's happening on the crypto side and what's happening on the fiat side of your company. And at the end, these will be the system that will, thanks to which you will get a balance sheet, Then you get an income statement and that kind of things. So yeah, I would say that this is still very exploratory, meaning that the regulation is still here, but there is a lot of things that are missing. Companies are trying to figure out what could be the different interpretation, what could be the different approaches. Our role is to build the technological brick to let companies do that, meaning to let companies import their data, keep the books of their transaction, identify the different accounting treatments of the different transaction, and help them import this transaction into an accounting system. Our role definitely is not to answer these accounting questions, is not to say this should be accounted like this and this should be accounted like this. But if you have any questions regarding specific accounting things, like specific accounting and regulation questions, you can send it to me without any problem. We have a network of accounting firms and tax advisors that will be happy to answer your questions. And if you have any other questions on just what I said, happy to answer your questions. I will just turn the video on. Oh. So yeah, so feel free to ask any questions in the chat regarding potential challenges that you faced as a founder. Again, there is no stupid questions, only like, yeah, everyone is trying to figure out how this works. So yeah, feel free to ask any question that you want.
Also, Anton, it might be useful for the audience if you name drop some of your customers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're working with companies like Cello, Consensus, Ocean Protocol, like crypto native companies that have a lot of crypto on their balance sheet, companies that are interacting with a lot of protocols, and basically they need to figure this out. So we're working with them, we're working with their financial directors, we're working with their accounting firms, and we're building kind of the accounting layer between the accounting system that they're using and this new thing that is crypto and decentralized finance. And also we are seed funded company by Consensus. And thanks Bitcoin Jack for the cool accent. So do you know any software that can be fed Ethereum transaction numbers and exports the variables? Yeah. Most software. So question Jose Bajedes, do you know any software that could fetch transaction numbers and export the variables? I would say I don't think so. You can ask the next panel, but the most of software basically for Ethereum, but it works also with Ember Data maybe might be a good one. Yeah, no, you can check. I'm not sure, but Alethio might be a good one also. We're working with these guys, Alethio, to get all the transactions around a crypto wallet. So basically, if you want to track a wallet, you will copy paste the public, and we will use Alethio infrastructure to be able to reconcile all the transactions. But if you want to do it at a transaction level, you can go to this product and try to figure this out. Yeah, but maybe Ember Data could be also a good choice. Where do you see the integration of these system in procure to pay or order to cash process? Answered. This is kind of a tricky question. I think we far from this yet. I think we far from this yet, meaning that right now, if you look at how the space evolves and how this integration evolves, right now the thing we really focus on, it could be you, it could be us, but it could be other software. It's the first step was to be able to build a software that can reconcile all the transactions of a company. So have connections with different chains, different protocols, and get the data, value the data in the local currency, and doing some basic classification, identification, and exports. And the space is very, very early. So this was the first thing to build. And now the thing where most players, and especially us, are focused on is basically to be able to have a kind of integration with accounting systems. So the more specific things, like the thing you mentioned, Kevin, I think it's still, we're not here yet. We're not here yet. We need to understand, and we need to make those two worlds work together, like the traditional accounting system world, like Xero, QuickBooks, and all this, which are not made for crypto transaction. Find a way to make this software communicate between each other, and then we'll be able to work on some more technical accounting and bookkeeping related stuff. Fa is asking, how are companies managing revenue for multiple countries? I mean, IT, Ghana, and Nigeria. Since each country has different rules, at the moment I use one ETH address to collect funds. Is it not the best practice? No. So again, I'm not an accountant, but so don't take what I say as like accounting advice, but definitely I have an answer on this. Yeah, you're right. So each country, of course, you need to check if there are such things at specific crypto taxation framework for these 3 countries, but it's very likely that there is. And you need to check if there are some differences between the 3. But if you have a business running in different countries, it's best practice from what we're saying for our clients is basically trying to isolate the activity from their wallets based on the jurisdiction, if it's possible, of course. So if you're collecting funds, both from Ghana, both from Nigeria, both from IT, what I really recommend is basically to have 3 different addresses. You can do with 1 addresses, but if at some point you need to have specific accounting interpretation, you will have since you're doing with 3 different addresses, you will have the option to better apply this different interpretation, because this is all this bookkeeping thing. This is what it is about. Basically, is building a bookkeeping system where you keep track of all your transaction, and you can apply you can apply regulation, but you can apply your own accounting firm interpretation. And then when the regulation is more and more precise, you can apply directly like the regulation. But you need to have something that needs to be updated, that could be updated, and that could change across time. So that's why I would recommend that you use different addresses for different countries.
All right, guys, if you have any last questions, please ask them now. If not, we're going to transition to our next session. So drop in questions now, or hold your peace.
Yeah, and putting my email. If you have any further question, here is my email. Feel free to drop me a message. Any type of question. And if you want to test the product out, feel free and go to our website.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the really great talk. We're going to switch to the next session.
Thank you very much.